after
Back.
many weeks delay down to exotic holidays and otherwise.
I'm still brown/red from my holiday.
Still rocking the American clothing for
Yes, this
English
was
football podcast.
I got this one because it was Tyreek Hill, which you don't normally get a lot of wide receiver tops over here. It's just the quarterback. So I took advantage. I got that, and I got a McCaffrey one for the 49ers. So I'm just basically now trying to have as many good teams tops as possible.
I now you're just a fan of every player in every team.
We'll just play on nail a Super Bowl. Don't have a Bengals top, and I don't have a Eagles top, so it'll be one of those two this year. Cool, right? So
thanks to everyone locking back in. We're obviously been off for a little while, but the whole idea is we want to complete our series of our report cards for the Premier League season that's been, and then obviously the season is fast approaching. So post this series, we'll lock into
not this Saturday,
next week, basically.
Saturday. Yeah. Before the season starts, we want to conclude last season because we've been a bit tardy. So I think report cards is what we were doing last time. So we'll get started. We'll start with Man United. I don't think we did Man U last time.
No. So school is in session, and we're off.
Ding ding.
With the famous one and only Manchester United. Just to remind everyone, we're going style of play, new signings. Did they progress? Their best and worst results of last season, the moments of the season, that could be a range of anything, trophies, and then an overall rating. I'll kick off for the famous Man U. And style of play, I'll give them a B minus. I thought, obviously, we were trying to play Ten Hag style early on in the season. We got sucker punched and hurt at the start of the season with a big beating at Brentford and then Brighton at home. And then I think for the rest of the season, for the most parts, we were good and bad. But I thought we were pragmatic overall is how I would phrase it, given I think Ten Hag obviously wants to play a lot more possession-based football, but given the players that he had on deck, really had to just ultimately adapt to what he had, basically. And so I thought we were quite pragmatic, and we probably need more players over the next couple of windows to really get playing Ten Hag's style that he wants to. New signings, those included Anthony, Casemiro, Martinez, Malacia and Eriksson on a permanent basis. I think there were Sabitzer and Weghorst, but we'll leave those out. In terms of the permanent signings, I thought strong B+. Really, it's only Anthony, I think, for the most part. I wouldn't say he's been a disaster by any stretch. I don't think he was worth the money we paid for him, but that's down to United's fault rather than his.
Most people would say they waited too long and the price went up and up
and
up.
So again, it's put on the player. Then all of a sudden, why aren't you proving you're 80 or 90 million pounds worth? It's like, oh, well, the football club I've signed for are absolute idiots, and therefore, I'm now having to justify a 90 million price tag rather than a 60. Yeah, he's obviously worked with.
I still think he's not worth that, but.
Yeah. Look, I think he's a work in progress. Ultimately, I think people forget these guys are 21, 22, 23, they've come from a different league, and I think we've forgotten about the season of settling in process. We forgot about Grealish at City in his first season, and everyone's paying homage to him this season when he's joined the best team in the Premier League, and then all of a sudden now he's getting a few goals and assists. Now he's suddenly with 100 million, which I don't think either, but that's by the by. Progression, I think, is an A. I think we were just far better placed as a team. Very one-dimensional under Ollie, very sit back and counter-attack. Therefore struggled at home against teams that sat back against us. Where I thought this year, or the season that's just been, we certainly progressed, albeit, like I said, we're pragmatic. Best result of the season. I'm actually giving it. United didn't score many goals. There weren't any big 4-5-0s really. But I'm going to give it the 2-1 win against Liverpool at the third game of the season. Reason being is you've got a new manager hot under the collar, gets spanked in his first two games. I think that game really just gave us a massive boost for the season that was been. Don't get me wrong, 3 games later we got pumped by City 6-3. But it was the start of turning the corner. Casemiro was round the corner as well in terms of integrating into the team, and I thought we were just a lot more stable moving forward. And yet, sticking with Liverpool, obviously the one and only 7-0 would be quite easily the worst result of the season. We did take a few big hits.
I've tried to get that 7-0 in as many times as possible.
We're going to cover off Liverpool soon.
I'm sure I got it in the last couple of times when I wasn't even talking about Man U or Liverpool. But that's an absolute disaster, losing 7-0 to your biggest rival.
What I typically do is obviously watch a game first thing in the morning on a Monday morning without checking my phone, and we were 3-0 down, and I looked and I saw I had about 500 messages, and I was like, something doesn't feel right here.
No,
Other than being 3-0 down, something's either going to... We're going to make a miraculous comeback here, which I'm not seeing, or we're going to get spanked. And I decided to check my messages and just turn the TV off. So glad I did that. Saved me a bit of brute. I've looked at a number of moments of the season, a couple of ones. I hope I don't steal any of you here, mate. Ronaldo's interview will be a big one. Ten Hag's interview with Neville and Carragher. I think we discussed that after the Brentford game. After the Brighton game. That required a bit of kahunas to be doing interviews and certainly letting a Scouser in the front doors at Carrington. But I thought that was pretty brave. But I think the big one for me was the fact that he did that running with post Brighton game, the 13Ks.
Brentford game, after the 4-0 loss at Brentford.
Was it Brentford that he did it?
Ks. Yeah, it was because they said
no, they lost because Brentford was the first game and then they lost against Brighton.
No, it was definitely after the Brentford game he ran the 14Ks because Brentford ran 14Ks more than them. Yeah, and that was kind of one of those things where you go, well,
yeah, exactly. He's put his money or his body where his mouth is. Apparently, he was in bits afterwards, as you can imagine. Yeah. But I thought it was a reflection on, we're a team, so we're all in it together. And I think he won a lot of players over. Trophies is obviously the obvious one of the Carling Cup. Unfortunately, United were quite poor, and against a poor City team, were very average in the FA Cup final. I thought City were very average.
Most seasons you win the League Cup, it's not really a big thing, but the fact is it stopped City getting every trophy, which has never been done. You know what I mean? So the quadruple would have been something that obviously it would have eclipsed obviously the Vico Man U's treble this year. So winning that cup did stop that as well, because that's normally City's cup for the taking. Yeah. So
and look, I'd love to say we stopped them, but I think if memory serves me correct, I think Southampton
knocked them out, but
beat them out, and then Newcastle from there.
That cup. Getting that cup. But overall, pretty good.
Overall, I'm giving United an A rating when I consider where we finished last year, which for the second half of the season, when Rangnick took over and players down tools, which for me is a disgrace no matter what you think of a manager, an absolute disgrace considering what kind of money you paid. And then to start off the way we did, I thought Ten Hag's really got the whole club fully invested in him. So I thought it was an A overall. That's me, mate. From my famous Man U over to maybe a more neutral or objective opinion slash objective bastard.
I'll start by thanking Man U for bringing out that horrible green top this year. Takes the heat off of Arsenal's away top.
Jeez,
so
thank
you, Man United.
I think I've seen City's one as well. It's like
Adidas. But that's horrible. And I thought the slime green last year was bad, but they beat it this year with the old school green. But Man United, I gave them overall for the season, I gave them an A. Right, it was nearly an A+. I think third was above what I expected them to get, and obviously when you win a cup on top of that, it sweetens it a bit more, and a cup final as well. So overall, definitely an A. Style of play at C for me, they're not watchable. If you don't support Man U, you won't watch them. Whereas I think most people would agree, Arsenal and City were good to watch this year. At times, Brighton are really good to watch. Like they're those kind of teams you don't need to be a fan. I think if you weren't a Man U fan, you weren't watching them.
I just thought it was very hot and cold. Some games were really good. Some games it was like just get the result basically.
Hard to beat, which
hard to beat. But I thought we were slick in some games, and then in halves of games, and then not for the full 90 or hot one game, cold the next, but scraping results basically.
I just didn't really think they were that great to watch. But my player of the season was Rashford. I thought that was Man U's best player, probably close second Casemiro, and you always get a pretty solid high level from Fernandes, but I thought Rashford, coming from where he was the previous 2 seasons to as many goals as he got, I think if he'd stayed fit longer as well, they got a lot more as well. So he was a surprise and probably the standout Man U player for me. The highlight of the season was the cup win. I think obviously, like I said, getting a trophy in a time where Man City are just so dominant, I think you've got to celebrate that, even if it is the lowest of the cups. The disaster, I've got 2 disasters. One was obviously the 7-0 thrashing at Anfield, but I don't think that's complete disaster because you did beat them 2-1 Old Trafford. But again, for the fans, for everyone, Jamie Carragher, all that, you never hear the end. You never hear the end of it. So 7-0 is a bit of a disaster. But I think more of a disaster was the way you played, letting in those 2 goals against Sevilla, which led to you get knocked out of that cup, which at the time was probably, in my opinion anyway, a better route to the Champions League, win a trophy, get into the Champions League as a pot one team. And at the time, third and fourth wasn't guaranteed.
But where you're also dismissing, mate, sorry to interrupt, what you're dismissing from that, though, is that you wouldn't have had some of Mark Goldbridge's highlights off the back of that. So.
Well, no, again, I just remember the Mark Goldbridge one where they wouldn't score in it. Yeah, that was my favourite moment, is seeing him going, yeah, someone has shouting, I've learned to love him. But yeah, that 2-0 up and cruising, losing that, drawing that game, which led to get knocked out. And I think Man U were way, way, way better than Sevilla, and probably could have gone on and could have, would have, should have, but should have probably won.
Should walk that comp. Honestly, it's a joke.
Should have won that comp, and I think you're sitting there with 2 trophies and straight into pot one. In the Champions League, you're feeling much better, and you would have got third anyway, just the way it fell. But like I said, at that point, I thought that was the biggest game of the season, and they just took it too lightly. So that was my joint disaster of the season. It didn't turn out to be as disastrous because they kind of rallied and got third in the league. I think they overachieved with third in a cup, so I've given them an A. And the needs, which some of them have been met already, but the needs that after that season, they definitely needed a striker. You can tell the boy Weghorst is just not good enough. He was brought in as a makeshift. You need a number 9. It looks like they're in the market for one at the moment, so that's good. I think you needed an upgraded goalkeeper. You've done that as well, so fair play to Ten Hag, because not easy getting rid of a legend of the club.
What's his name?
You got Nana. What's my name? Oh Nana. What's my name? We'll see how good he's going to be.
Oh, he's going to be quality, mate. It's just
on the ball.
Put your safety belt on. Put your safety belt on, mate. It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah. Should be fun. But I think, like I said, I think they needed an upgraded goalkeeper. They've done that, and it took cojones from Ten Hag to get rid of a club legend.
Yeah, I mean, look at
spend money when you don't have an unlimited pot, so to spend 50 million when he could have just re-signed De Gea. I think I'd take that. Tells
I think
you
just the way it was handled, obviously, is a bit disappointing. But I think it was a bit of disappointing. Did they know how much they had at the start? When was that communicated? Someone that's played 12 years for the club and been one of the best players for many years during that period.
But
to have a farewell, they should have resolved that before the end of the season, basically.
No, he should have known a long time ago he wasn't going to get an extension. Anyway, they needed a goalie upgrade. They got it. I still think they need another midfielder to help Eriksen, so that you're not relying on Eriksen playing every week. He's not fit enough. But when he plays,
he won't play. I think Mount will play in his position, and so he'll. So I think he'll come on, or obviously
I think that suits. I think that suits. If Mount is that replacement, then I think that's better, because Eriksen's probably more better off the bench now in set pieces and things. But yeah, the main need is the striker. So you'll see if you end up actually spending the money and getting one. But yeah, overall, A. Man United.
Lovely. All right, mate. We'll wrap up Man United and we'll get on to the next one.
Cool.